Alright guys, I am back with my review of this week's episode of Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, Season 3, Episode 2, Death Ray. And they start this episode off by saying, somebody dies. That's how they started off. They talk about how they're going to go search for answers about this Death Ray machine, and one of Jesse's informants ends up dying. Of course, they don't really tell you what happened till the end of the episode, but it was still shocking to me. I was like, holy crap, are you serious? And they're gonna promote the show with that? That's insane. But yeah, it starts off Jesse's talking to this guy who helped develop the Death Ray. He says it started with Tesla, and Jesse says, aren't you afraid of the government coming after you for giving me this information? He says no, because from time to time they actually need my help with stuff. Sean and Terrell talk to a guy who wrote a book about UFOs and how they're really just government aircraft, and apparently he's being tortured by a death ray. He lives in his house and occasionally gets shot with a laser beam or something that he can't see that just causes him a lot of pain all over his body. So they have a death ray and they just set it to low to torture this man. That's what it sounds like to me, because he wrote a book. So that was pretty crazy. And they find out about all these people who have been killed or died under mysterious circumstances who were associated with this directed energy. So there's this other man named Hutchison who's created his own Tesla machine and using his methods of directed energy. So they decide they're going to go to his house, and he lives in Minnesota. That's Ventura territory. So they go to his house and they look at some of his experiments and gadgets, and it's actually pretty cool. And then they go outside, he's got a death ray strapped to the top of this RV thing or something. And it was actually a really interesting episode just to hear these different people talk about these programs. This guy had worked on Reagan's Star Wars program and stuff like that. So it was all really interesting. And then Terrell gets pissed at Jesse, because Jesse thinks maybe a death ray caused the World Trade Center to collapse. And he's pissed because he thinks this is going to ruin Jesse's credibility. And because they've been saying for 2 years that it was thermite paint. And now Jesse's thinking maybe it's a death ray. He thinks it's worth looking into. So Terrell's getting pissed off and they go back and forth about it. And then Jesse goes to see this woman who wrote a book about how it could have been a death ray. And this was actually really interesting also. And she's explaining how there wasn't enough rubble. So when the Trade Center collapsed, there should have been much more debris left over than what was found. Some of the building vanished, is her theory. And there was cars blocks away that were burned up and stuff like that. And this is all very intriguing to Jesse. He's actually thinking this is the most legit theory. And then at the end of the episode, we find out the guy at the beginning he talked to, who said he helped develop the death ray and wasn't afraid of the government coming after him, died 2 days after giving that interview. Now that's pretty crazy. And whether it's coincidence or not, that's that's a pretty big coincidence, I have to say. But you never know. But I really enjoyed this week's episode. I thought it was interesting. When I found out it was about a death ray, I was kind of like, it's not going to be as good as the Reptilians. And for pure entertainment purposes, it wasn't. But it was still a really interesting episode. And I thought it had some pretty cool theories and stuff. So I enjoyed this week's. I'm not sure when next week's episode is going to be, but I hope this show goes on forever. It's amazing stuff. So anyways, that's my review of this week's episode of Conspiracy Theory. Hope you guys liked this video. Leave your thoughts on this week's episode in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Bye.